Hey, what's up guys? Today I'm going to be attempting a process that's called carbon skinning on my custom door handles. So first of all, let me explain a little bit what carbon skinning is. It's a process in which you lay a single sheet of carbon fiber over a part, either to make it stronger or to make it look good. In my case, I'm just going to make it look better. These things are plenty strong. I just want them to look like carbon fiber. And also I think it's going to be a good idea to bond everything together with a single material, because right now there's plastic, fiberglass, and body filler on it. So I think it's a good idea to finish it up with a single material. Just to make things clear, I've never done this before, so I'm going to be learning as we go. But I ordered a carbon fiber skinning kit from Easy Composites in the UK, and they have a great tutorial on how to make it, so I think it's going to be easy enough. It seems quite time consuming, but doesn't seem like a hard process. So yeah, let's try it and see what happens. So starting left to right, you've got some mixing buckets and some gloves, and then the black resin, which goes as the first coat, and then you've got some clear resin for the next coats. At the end, you're going to use this buffing compound to make the part look absolutely phenomenal. Then of course, some carbon fiber weave. And then we've got some brushes to apply the resin. And finally, a bunch of sandpaper of different grades to work on the parts. The only two things you're going to require on top of this kit are a scale to measure the amount of resin that you're going to mix, and a respirator for your own safety. I also bought this spray adhesive in case the carbon fiber has a hard time sticking to the resin. But that shouldn't be an issue, and if you do everything correctly, you shouldn't need it. So now that we've gone over the kit, let's go over the setup. I've got one table here where I'm going to be mixing the resin and preparing the carbon fiber sheets. And then I've got one table over there where I'm going to be applying the resin onto the parts. And I've made sure to protect the table with some plastic coverage. And I've got my two parts. Those are the two door handles that I've carefully prepared and sanded, ready for the first coat of resin. So I've got my gloves on, I'm ready to start the process. The first thing is going to be mixing the base coat, which is this black bottle. So I've got the base coat, the hardener, my mixing buckets, and the scale. So the way this works is you want to mix 3 parts of the epoxy resin with 1 part of the hardener. In my case, I'm going to use 75 grams of this and 25 of the hardener. And I've got my bucket, everything ready to be measured. So let's go and mix it up. Now I'm going to make sure to mix it thoroughly. So now that the resin is well mixed, let's go ahead and apply it on the parts. So the key here is to get a nice and even coat without any runs, but you want full coverage, otherwise there's going to be some white sticking through the fabric. So yeah, you definitely want to make everything black, but don't put too much to where it'll run and cause some issues later on. So we've got full coverage now, and I've elevated the parts just a little bit so it doesn't stick to the plastic. But yeah, it's looking pretty good so far, and we can let it sit for about 2 hours.
2 hours later.
So it's been about 2 hours now, and to see if the resin is ready, what you want to do is touch it. And if nothing stays on your finger, but you still leave a nice fingerprint on there, you know it's ready for the fiber cloth. So now I'm going to take my fiber and gently lay it out. Take the amount that I need and start applying it on the parts. I've applied the fiber the best I could, and the only section left is this rear section on both parts. But for this one I need to make a cut, so I'm going to first cut off the excess, then make a slight cut in the fabric over there and fold it over. Okay, so I just finished doing the edges, and as you probably saw, I used a little bit of the spray adhesive, because once you fold one cloth over, the resin doesn't go through, so you have nothing to stick the second coat, the second layer onto. So using a little bit of spray adhesive really helps. So now I can go ahead and trim everything else that I don't need. So I decided not to trim the fabric all the way, because that would probably mess up the weave, and definitely don't want that. It looks pretty good already, so I'm gonna let it sit for another 2 to 3 hours, and once that's done, we can put the first coat on.
3 hours later.
Alright, the 3 hours have passed, so let's go ahead and mix up the clear resin and start applying it. So this time we're using the clear epoxy, and it's the same ratio, so 3 to 1. And I'm gonna do a little bit less because last time I had a little bit too much on here, so now I'm gonna do 60 of this and 20 of the hardener. And you should always shake it first. And now the hardener up to total of 80 grams. And now again, we make sure to mix it all the way before applying. Usually takes me about a minute or two. I mean, beyond that, it's not really useful. But yeah, you need to make sure to scrape off the sides on the stick, like everything. Now this coat is applied in the same manner as the base coat. So you're basically trying to get full coverage and wetting the fabric without creating any runs. So let's do this. I'm gonna try and be as gentle as possible, not to mess up the weave, but I think it shouldn't be an issue since it's already stuck onto the first layer of resin, but you never know. So the first coat of resin is on. The application went pretty smooth. I didn't mess up the weave, which I was worried about, but it seemed to stick well to the base coat. But yeah, you can see, if I can bounce the light off of here, it's already looking pretty good. I did mess up slightly over here and down here, but those are not areas that you would see inside the car, because this is the bottom of the handle. And who's gonna look down there? But also the cuts I had to make here are gonna be visible on the top of the handle, and on this handle I actually did it on the side, so yeah, I guess you can't really see on this one, but I didn't know which way was better, so I tried one and one just to see which one will turn out the best. But yeah, now I can let it sit for I think about 8 hours. That's initial cure, and we'll come back tomorrow for some sanding. It is the next day and the resin has fully cured, so what I need to do now is trim off all of the excess carbon fiber that's sticking out further than the parts, and then I'll take 120 grit sandpaper and key the surface to give the next layer the proper surface to adhere onto. The parts are now fully trimmed and sanded, so they're ready for the next stage, which is 3 coats of clear layer. This time the timing is really important. You want to wait exactly 2 hours between each coat so that it gets just tacky enough for the next coat to adhere onto. And what this does is it builds up that clear layer that we can then sand down smoothly, and then we'll do a final layer on top. But for now, we're just going to do 3 coats with 2-hour interval, and let's go and mix it up. The 3 coats are on, so now we can let it sit for about 8 hours until it's fully hardened. The last 3 coats have finally dried fully and it looks quite nice already. But as you can tell, there are lots of little bumps and high spots, so now it's time to sand everything down smoothly, and then we can apply the final layer of clear epoxy. And for this, I'm going to be using the 120 grit sandpaper at first, and then the 240. There's the first piece done with 120. You can clearly see the difference with the other one. But now I want to take a Dremel and clean off all of the edges, all of the runs, and open up the hole over here for the buttons. And once that's done, I can finish off this piece with the 240 grit sandpaper and do the same on this guy. And there are the 2 parts fully sanded, so now I can take a wet cloth and wipe everything down, make sure all the dust is gone, and apply the last coat of clear. And there's the last coat fully dried up now, and it's looking really good so far, but I think I may have messed up the proportions on my epoxy a little bit, because the resin is still kind of tacky and it's been over 24 hours. It's not a huge thing, but like right there you can see a fingerprint from just now. But yeah, so on this side I tried sanding it. I took 120 grit sandpaper and just started lightly sanding it, and it seems to have solved the issue. Like it's not tacky anymore at all. Feels pretty good, so I'm just gonna keep sanding and crossing my fingers. Just got done with the 240, so if I take a little water, you can see just how good this carbon looks. So now I'm gonna keep going with the next grit, which is 400, this guy, and then all the way up to the 1200. And after that, we'll do some polishing. But yeah, for now, I'll just keep doing the sandpaper. Wet sanding everything, and yeah. So the parts are now fully sanded all the way up to 1200 grit, and it's kind of like it's looking like a matte black finish or matte carbon, and you can still see the fiber, but it's not super shiny like you're probably used to. So yeah, to make it shiny, what we're using is this polishing compound, which is quite aggressive, but just makes things a little bit faster. And what you want to do is put some on the cloth and just start polishing away. So I'm going to do that. But I also noticed a few imperfections, like in the back here. Let me focus quick. Yep, you can see that I actually burned through the resin, and there are some air gaps inside of the weave. As well on this side over here, and I think right here. So the bottom ones, like the back ones, I'm not too worried about, but this one is going to be seen a lot, so I'm thinking I want to fix it. I'll put some more resin in it and re-polish or re-sand everything. I'm not going to do the entire thing. If I can, I'll just fix those few spots, let it dry, and then sand it. But for now, I want to see how this stuff works. So I'm going to still polish the entire thing. And later on, I'll be fixing those. There we go. So I was told this stuff works really good and really fast. So I'm going to do a real-time video here. No time lapse. Got my cloth. I've got polishing compound. Just going to put a little bit on it, like that. Not too much. I think, yeah. Like this, And I'm gonna start on this area here, which you can see is quite matte right now. I have wet fingers. But yeah, so let's try this over here. Just doing circular motion. I don't know if that's what you're supposed to do, but that's what I'm doing. Alright, let's see. Wow. That worked really, really good. I don't know if you can tell on the camera, but this area here is where I polished, and it's definitely super clear compared to the rest. So yeah, I'm gonna keep working my way, and hopefully the whole part will look like this. So I just got done polishing the right side, and I wanted to give a quick comparison between the left and right, which obviously left is not polished, it's raw after the 1200 grit, and the right one is polished. And the right one looks so much more clear. You can see all the fibers very, very good. And honestly, it's looking like this thing came out of a mold or something. Like everything is so smooth, all the lines are straight. It's actually really impressive. I did not expect it to come out that good, but yeah, I'm really stoked with the results. Except for the little pinholes and stuff in the back, which obviously I said I was gonna fix later on. But other than that, it's pretty much a perfect job. Last thing to do is to test fit the parts. So I got my buttons and they should fit, yep, right in. And then let's see if it still fits. So there we go. Boom, right there. And there's the finished product. It looks so good in the sun. But yeah, pretty stoked. And you can see the gap by the door, so it's really almost no gap at all. A little bit over here, but I think that's just the flex of the door. And once I put bolts in, it's gonna push in more against the door. But yeah, super stoked with the result. This skinning kit is amazing. The fabric looks really good. There are just very few defects, like I think over here I may have burned through when I was sanding, and in the back where I had to fold the fabric. But other than that, it's pretty much perfect. I mean, look at this. There you have it, guys, a quick video on how to make carbon parts using the carbon skinning kit from Easy Composites. And yeah, I'd say it's a pretty easy process. It's just quite time consuming. It took me about a week to make these two parts, but I think the results quite impressive. So if you just follow every step, you'll get there. And now I can keep going with the build. But I wanted to show how accessible carbon fiber can be. There are definitely some more complicated processes out there, like pre-preg, wet layup sometimes, and you know, just more complicated stuff that you probably don't need unless you're doing high-end racing or aircraft stuff, which in my case I'm not, so this was perfectly suited. And it's very accessible. As you saw, I'm doing this in my garage with no special tools. So yeah, carbon fiber can be done by anyone. That being said, I encourage you to try this on your own and maybe start on a smaller part. I mean, it was definitely a challenge to do this the first time. But yeah, so that's all I got for you today. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe to see more, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.